Graded reader. I had been digging for almost 5 minutes when I heard a shout. A moment later, people were all around me, shining lights in my face. After I married my second wife, Helen, I moved into her house in Northern California. It was a large house with plenty of land around it, just outside a small town. The house next door looked almost exactly the same. It belonged to Helen's sister, Margaret. Helen and Margaret were sisters, but in appearance and personality, they could not have been more different. Margaret was tall and rather thin. She was strong-willed, forceful, and liked to control everyone around her, including Helen. She was not pleased at all when I arrived and took Helen away from her influence. Helen, on the other hand, was short and, well, rather fat. As Helen herself often said, she was about 11 or 12 kilos overweight. She never claimed to be especially clever, and most of the time she did what other people wanted. Not always, of course. For the past 3 weeks, Helen had been away. During that time, Margaret had been watching me carefully. She was with me now, sitting in our living room and drinking coffee. The telephone rang and I answered it. Yes? Hello, dear. This is Helen. Helen? What is your last name? Oh, really, dear. Helen, your wife. I'm sorry. You must have the wrong number. I put the phone down. Margaret was staring at me. You look as white as a sheet. You look frightened, shocked. Who called? It was a wrong number. Margaret took a sip of coffee. Oh, Arthur, I thought I saw Helen in town yesterday, but that isn't possible. Of course it isn't. Helen is in San Francisco. Yes, but where in San Francisco? She didn't say. She's visiting friends. Helen doesn't have any friends in San Francisco. I know all her friends. When is she coming back? She wasn't sure. I've heard, Arthur, that your first wife died in a boating accident. She fell out of the boat and drowned? I'm afraid so. She couldn't swim. And you were the only witness? I believe so. No one else ever came forward. Did she leave you any money, Arthur? That has nothing to do with you, Margaret. In fact, Clara had left $50,000 in life insurance and 1 sailing boat. Poor Clara. She had taken her boat out alone that day. I had seen the accident from the boat club and had rushed out in another boat, but I was too late to save her. Margaret finished her coffee and left. After she had gone, I went for a walk through the woods behind the house. I walked until I reached a clearing among the trees. A small stream ran through it. It was peaceful there, quiet, a place where a person could rest. I had been coming to that spot often during the last few days. I sat down on a fallen tree near the stream and thought about Helen and Margaret. Their houses and lands looked almost the same, so you might think they were equally wealthy. But after I married Helen, I discovered that was not true. Helen owned her house and the land around it, but she could not afford to hire people to take care of them. Margaret, however, employed many people in her house. She even had a lawyer to manage her money. She must have had at least $1 million. On Tuesday afternoons, I usually drove into town to shop at the supermarket. That day, in the car park, I saw a small, rather fat woman across the street, walking away from me. She was wearing a purple dress and a brown hat. It was the 4th time I had seen her in the last 10 days. I hurried across the street. She turned the corner and I began to run. When I reached the corner, she had disappeared. I was still standing there when a car stopped beside me. It was Margaret. What are you doing, Arthur? I saw you running. I've never seen you run before. Oh, I was just getting a little exercise. I was still breathing heavily as I walked back to the supermarket. The next morning, after I returned from my walk to the stream, I found Margaret in the living room pouring herself some coffee. "I've been in the bedroom looking through Helen's clothes," Margaret said. "I didn't see anything missing." "Why should anything be missing? Has there been a thief in the house?" "Don't tell me Helen went to stay with friends in San Francisco without taking any luggage." "She had luggage. Not very much, though." "What was she wearing when she left?" "I don't remember," I said. That evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I looked inside Helen's wardrobe. What should I do with her clothes? Perhaps I should give some of them away. I woke up at 2 a.m. with bright moonlight shining on my face. I got dressed and went out to the shed in the garden. I needed something for digging. I chose a long-handled spade, put it over my shoulder, and started walking toward the stream. I was almost there when I stopped. Slowly, I shook my head and went back to the shed. I put the spade away and returned to bed. The next morning, Margaret came to see me while I was eating breakfast. She brought in the Morning Post, which had just arrived. Among the letters was a small blue envelope addressed to me. The handwriting looked familiar. The postmark was from our local town. I opened the envelope and pulled out a sheet of paper. "Dear Arthur, I miss you terribly. I shall come home soon, Arthur. Soon. Helen." I put the letter and envelope into my pocket. "Well?" Margaret asked. I thought I recognized Helen's handwriting on the envelope. "Did she say when she is coming back?" "That is not Helen's handwriting. It is a letter from my aunt in Chicago." "I didn't know you had an aunt in Chicago." "Don't worry, Margaret. I do have an aunt in Chicago." That night, I was lying awake in bed when the telephone beside me rang. "Hello, my sweet. This is Helen." "You are not Helen. You are someone else." "Don't be silly, Arthur. Of course it's me, Helen." "You cannot be Helen. I know where she is, and she could not possibly telephone at this time of night." "You think you know where I am?" "No, Arthur. I'm not there now. It was too uncomfortable, so I left." I got out of bed and dressed. I went downstairs to the study and poured myself a drink. I drank it slowly. It was nearly 1 o'clock in the morning when I went out to the garden shed again and took out the spade. This time, I walked all the way to the clearing among the trees. I stopped beside the tallest tree. Then I began taking long steps and counting them as I went. 1, 2, 3, 4. I stopped at 16. Then I began to dig. I had been digging for almost 5 minutes when I heard a shout. Suddenly, people were all around me, shining lights straight into my face. I recognized several of Margaret's employees, including her lawyer. Then Margaret herself stepped forward. "So you wanted to make sure she was really dead, Arthur. And the only way to do that was to return to the place where you buried her." "I am looking for old Indian knives," I said. "People say that if you find one in the moonlight, it brings good luck." Margaret ignored my explanation. She pointed to some people I did not know. "These are private detectives," she said. "They have been watching you 24 hours a day, ever since I guessed what really happened to Helen." Then she pointed to a small, rather fat woman. "That is Mrs. Whitmore. She was the woman in the purple dress, and she copied Helen's handwriting. And this is Miss Harper. She is very good at imitating voices. She was the voice of Helen that you heard on the telephone." There were also 2 detectives, and they had brought their own spades. They began digging in the hole I had started. "We knew you were becoming nervous, Arthur," Margaret said. "You almost dug her up last night, didn't you? But then you changed your mind. That was lucky, because last night I did not have enough people watching you. Tonight, we were ready and waiting." The detectives dug for about 15 minutes, then stopped to rest. "This ground is very hard," one of them said. They kept digging until the hole was 2 meters deep. "Nothing has been buried here," said the other detective. "The only thing we found was an old Indian knife." I smiled at Margaret. "What made you think I had buried Helen?" I left them there and went back to the house. From the beginning, I had suspected that Margaret was behind the false Helen, who had appeared to me in different forms. It had all been part of her plan. What had she wanted? She believed I had killed her sister, so she wanted to frighten me until I broke down and cried, "Yes, yes, I killed her!" But I had been playing a game too. I wanted her to think I was frightened, and of course I wanted her to believe I had buried Helen's body in that exact place in the woods. Now I was in a very strong position. She had called me a murderer in front of all those witnesses. I could take the matter to court and demand a large amount of money from her. But she would not want that to happen. She would not want the world to know how foolish she had been. She would rather pay those people to keep quiet. Would that be possible? Yes. It would help if I supported her story and said that nothing had happened at all. And I would do that for Margaret. If she gave me money, of course. A large amount of money. At the end of the week, my telephone rang. "This is Helen." "I'm coming home now, dear." "Oh, wonderful." Did anyone miss me? They certainly did. "You haven't told anyone where I've been these last 4 weeks, have you, Arthur? Especially not Margaret?" "I told her you were visiting friends in San Francisco." "Oh, dear. I don't know anyone in San Francisco. Did she believe you?" "I don't think so." "Well, I couldn't tell her I was going to a health farm to lose weight. I would have been ashamed. And I wasn't even sure I would manage it." "But I did, Arthur. I really did. I've lost 14 kilos. My figure must be as good as Clara's now." "Well done, Helen. That's wonderful." Why is Helen jealous of my first wife? They each have their own place in my heart. "Yes, but now none of my clothes will fit me." "I'll have to buy a lot of new clothes. Do you think we can afford it, Arthur?" "Ah, yes. We can now. With a little help from Margaret."